Primary key is a key, it is a unique key in the table. By that, we can able to access any data. Physical level independence means by changing at the physical content, physical data, it will not affect for the conceptual level. Normalization is mainly used to reduce the redundancy in the table. Changing in the physical structure will not affect the conceptual level as well as external level. That is, the rule 8 says physical data independence must and should be there. Welcome back to One and All. Myself, Vasanta, lecturer in Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. Today, we are going to start with the 5th session of Database Concept chapter. Whereas in the previous class, you have studied regarding what do you mean by database models, that is, the general structure of the data in a database, then hierarchical model, network model, relational model. Whereas hierarchical model means that how the data are arranged, how it can be accessed, what are the advantages, disadvantages, everything you have studied in network model as well as in relational model. Whereas in hierarchical model, the data will be represented in the tree format. Whereas in the network model, data can be represented in graph format. Whereas in relational model, data can be represented in table format. All this thing you have studied in the previous class. Today, you will study regarding Coates rule as well as what do you mean by normalization. Under that, which are the types of normalization, that is 1 normal form, 2 normal form, 3 normal form as well as BCNF. Whereas, if you go to higher studies, there you will get 4th normal form, 5th normal form, 6th normal form. But in your syllabus, you have only 1 normal form, 2 normal form, 3 normal form. Now, first we'll discuss about what do you mean by Coates rule. Whereas, here, if I want to write any program or if I want to store any data, then some rules and regulations you have to follow. Especially when I want to write the data in a table format. Consider this is the student table. In this student table, that is in student database, I am having the student name, marks 1 as well as one more column here we have, that is register number, marks 2, then for example total. If I want to create any table, then some rules and regulations, especially here you have to follow. That rules and regulations are designed by Coates. That's why these rules can be called as Coates rule. The first one, 0 rule, that is manageable database. Whatever data, whatever table we have created, that has to be in the format of manageable format. Then rule 1, see one by one because this is the important question for 5 marks in the annual exam you are going to get. What exactly the rule 1 says, that is information rule. The rule 1, the name of that is information rule. It means that every data has to be represented in the format of cell of tables. Here we have to represent all the values in the format of cell format. In the field format, we have to enter the values. Here, register number, for example, R1, name is X, marks 10, 20, and the total is 30. It means that the first rule is information rule. In this information rule, all the data has to be represented in the format of cells, especially in table, there we have to enter in the cell format. And the second rule, guaranteed access rule. What do you mean by this guaranteed access rule? If I want to access any student information, then with the help of the table name as well as primary key and the attribute, I can able to access whichever record I want. For example, in this table, we have R2 register number, Y 30, 40 and then 70. Like that we have. By using the table name, what is the table name here? We have student is the table name. Then what is the primary key in this? Then what do you mean by primary key? Primary key is a key. It is a unique key in the table. By that we can able to access any data. For example, if I am going to consider name cannot be called as primary key because name may be repeated for others also. If I am going to consider This register number, that is a unique value that will never repeat for anybody. It's a unique value that can be called as primary key. Primary key values are unique value in the table. If I want to access any record, then there must and should be right the table name, then what is the primary key you have to mention, then which attribute. By that we can able to access. Guaranteed access rule. This is a rule 2. Rule 1 says in the format of cells we have to enter the data. Whereas rule 2 says here guaranteedly I can able to access any data by using table name, by primary key as well as by using attribute I can able to access whichever record I want I can able to access. Whereas the rule 3 it says that systematic treatment of null. Systematic treatment of null means primary key cannot be null value. While entering the value in this, primary key cannot be null. Must and should we have to enter some values there. Here is R1 and here is R2, then here it is R3, X, Y, Z, marks 10, 30, totally 40, for example. It means that here the primary key cannot be null. We are not supposed to leave empty. It is compulsory we have to enter the value. That is rule 3 statement, that is systematic treatment of null. Primary key cannot be null here. Must and should it contain some values. And the fourth rule says that active online catalog, description of database. Whatever data we are using, which data type it is, how much space it required, which data type, where it is stored, all the thing we have to store here. That is description of database, active online catalog. Whatever data in this database we have regarding that data, all the descriptions must and should we have to know. Then only it can be easily accessed. Then powerful language, that is rule 5 says that it's a powerful language we have to use. Powerful language, if I want to access the data, especially in the table format, then some particular languages, particular programming languages has to be used. The powerful languages we have to use, for example, SQL, MySQL, Oracle 10G, or all those are powerful languages that we can use here. Powerful language. If I want to create a table, if I want to access, if I want to update, there must and should be use the powerful language. That is the rule 5 states that powerful languages were to use to process the contents in the table. Then rule 6 says that view updation rule. View updation rule. Whatever thing we updated, whatever the data is there, that has to be immediately updated. For example, we have the marks is 10 in the case of name X. There if I want to make changes 20, then here it becomes 40. It means that whatever thing the change is updated, whatever thing the change is taking place, that has to be updated immediately. The first rule, information rule. Information rule means in the cell format we have to enter the value. Whereas rule 2 says that guaranteed access, if I want to access any data, there must and should be mentioned the table name, primary key as well as attribute. Whereas rule 3 says that systematic treatment of null. It means that the primary key cannot be null. Then rule 4, active online catalog, description of database. Then rule 5 states that powerful languages here we have to use to access the data or to create the data in the database. Then rule 6 states that view updation rule. Whatever transaction it has happened, immediately it has to be updated. And the rule 7 says that relational level operation. Relational level operation. What do you mean by relational level operation? It has to support insertion, deletion, updation, unique, all the operation in the table it has to be support. That is relational level operation. Rule 7 states that relational level operation. That means in the table I can able to insert in the student table only I am going to consider. In the student table I can able to insert the values. Name, register number, marks 1, marks 2. Here it has to support for inserting the record. For example, register number M1, name A, marks 10, 20. It has to be support for insertion operation, and whichever record we don't want, that record it has to be deleted by using delete operations. It has to support for that operation also, and updation, uniqueness, all the operation must and should it has to support. That is rule 7, relational level operation it has to support. Then rule 8, that is physical data independence. physical data independence, that is change in physical structure not affects for other level. Whereas in the previous class only I told you physical independence as well as logical independence. Physical level independence means by changing at the physical content, physical data, it will not affect for the conceptual level. Whereas conceptual level is nothing but changing the concept data, especially in the concept level, without affecting the external level. In the same way, in this, the physical data independence means changing in physical structure. Changing in the physical structure will not affect the conceptual level as well as external level. That is, the rule 8 says physical data independence must and should be there. Then rule 9 says that logical data independence. Change in the table structure will not affect the external level. For example, if I want to consider any levels, there we have physical level. Physical level means where exactly it is stored. Conceptual level is nothing but it mainly deals with the structure of the data, how much space it required, where it is stored, which data type it is, how it can be accessed. And the external level deals with how the user view the data. Whereas in this, logical data independence means changing in the structure. That is especially in conceptual level without affecting to the external level. External level, how they want, like that way they can able to see. For example, if they want to see the data in table format, they can able to see in table format. Or if they want to see in graph format they can able to see. If they want paragraph format, in paragraph format also they can see. By changing at conceptual level, that is logical level, without affecting the external level, that is logical data independence. And the next rule 10 says that integrity independence, that is independent of application. Whichever application we want, there we can use, and by that we can able to process application. Whichever application we want, we can use and access. That is integrity independence. And the rule 11 says distribution independence. Distribution independence means distribution of database. Whatever content we have, that can be easily accessed, it can be distributed, it can be processed. That is rule 11 says distribution independence. And rule 12 says non-subversion rule, not to be weaker the system security. Compulsory, whatever data here we have, that has to be secured properly. It can be given only for authorized person. That is the final rules. That is non-subversion rule it has to support. See, once again I am to recall. Rule 1, information rule means in cell format it has to be represent. That on table format. Rule 2, guaranteed access. That means if I want to access any record, table name, primary key as well as attribute we have to mention. Rule 3, systematic treatment of null. Primary key cannot be null. Whereas rule 4, active online catalog. Description about data in the database. Rule 5, powerful languages. To store this, to create this, to manage this, we need a powerful language. Then rule 6, view updation rule. Whatever transaction we have done, that has to be immediately updated. Then rule 7, relational level operation. It must and should support insertion, creation, updation, modification, everything. All the operation it has to be support. Whereas rule 8, physical data independence. That means it change it physical level without affecting conceptual as well as external level. By changing physical level, it is not supposed to affect conceptual level as well as external level. Whereas rule 9, logical data independence. Logical data independence means change in the table, especially at the logical level, that is conceptual level, without affecting to the external level. Then rule 10 says integrity independence. Independence of application. Whichever application we want, for all the application it has to support. Then rule 11, distribution independence, that is distribution of database. Here it has to be performed. Rule 12, non-subversion rule. It means that not to be weaken the system security. Compulsory, we need security, then only we can easily access as well as it can be secured for future purpose. These are the few rules in course we have to follow. That is course rules, important for 5 marks. You have to mention, you have to explain any 5 rules, then only we'll get 5 marks in the annual exam. Next, we'll discuss about normalization. What do you mean by normalization? Why we require this normalization? Normalization is mainly used to reduce the redundancy in the table. It mainly minimizes the redundancy. Then what do you mean by redundancy? repetitions can be avoided here. I'm going to give an example. Consider on this college, we have physics department, CS department as well as maths department. If all the departments maintaining the student information, then the name will repeat, subject will repeat, combination will repeat, is it no? That means in normalization, only one time they will store there, only one time they will write name, then which are the subjects, physics, maths, computer science, everything they will write. That means we can able to avoid the repetition of the data several times. ಈಗ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟು ಕೂಡ ಅಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಹೆಸರು ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದ್ರ ಬದಲು ಫಿಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟು ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ಮ್ಯಾಥ್ಸು ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಮಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿನೂ ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. Names and ಅಷ್ಟು ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದು. Whereas in the office, only one time they will write all the student name, then combination. It means that this normalization helps to minimize the repetition. Normalization is the process of minimizing redundancy from a relation or a set of relationship. Main thing, repetitions can be avoided here. Then redundancy in a relationship may cause insertion, deletion and updation anomalies. So it helps to minimize the redundancy in any relationship, in any table, in any information. There must and should be, we have to avoid the repetition. Redundancy means repetition. When they come on types of normalization, first normal form, second normal form, third normal form, BCNF form. Next, we'll explain first normal form. What do you mean by first normal form? Already you come to know normalization is nothing but minimizing the repetition. But when they come on first normal form, there every column in the table must be unique value. Consider this example. Consider this is a main table. In this table, we have ID, name as well as subject. But ID is the primary key. Here it is a primary key because a unique value. Then name as well as subject are the attributes. In this ID, we have 1 to 89. One the ID number and one more his name is Ramesh and two subject is selected, one is maths and one more is science. Whereas in the second column we have 5, 6, 7, 8, name is Shruti and English. Whereas you just observe in this we have two subject, that is Ramesh selected two subject, one is maths and one more is science. Whereas in first normal form what we have to do is we have to remove that values. Only one value must and should be there in each and every cell. In first normal form, what we will do? We will write as usual the ID, the name is Ramesh, only math subject here we will write. Only the first content here we will write. Next, once again the same ID, name as well as the second subject, that is science, here we will write. Then third one as usual, Shruti, their subject. It means that in each and every cell must and should be only one value. That must and should be in first normal form. No row may be duplicated here. ಯಾವುದೇ row duplicate ಆಗಿರಬಾರ್ದು. Then no column may be duplicated here. Then the row of data cannot contain repeating group of data. See, each row, observe here, these two contents will be same, but when they come on this particular column here, it is maths. If you come on this one here, it is science. If you come on this, here the subject is English. That means here no row of data cannot contain repeating group of data. Just, I am going to give one more example. For example, here name I am going to consider, then phone number. Phone number. Two columns here I am considered. In one column the name is X and another column the name is Y. Here two numbers I am going to write, first one and then second one, and then for Y one more number. In first normal form what I have to write? Same pattern. Here I will write the name, then phone number. Phone number. First X, first number here I will write, then name X, second number will write, then Y number. That means here each and every cell must and should contain only one value, only one attribute it has to be stored, that is first normal form. Now we will move to the second normal form. The second normal form says that it must meet all the needs of first normal form. Compulsory, if I want to move to second standard, then must and should first I have to pass first standard. Then only I can move to the second standard. Then there must not be any partial dependency of any column on primary key. Partial dependency we have to remove here. That is, consider this is a table, this is first table, this is a original table here we have. Then here we have two attributes. In first normal form, what we have done, just I replace one row in maths and another row science and then as usual English. This is first normal form, first NF. This is the main table and this is first NF, first normal form. Now come to here. Here you just observe, depending upon the ID, it must not be any partial dependency. First I will write ID and then subject. Here in this case, ID is the primary key. Then I will write all the ID as well as subject. Once again I will write this ID with name. Then here ID as usual, name. This is nothing but second normal form. There must not be any partial dependency. We have to remove the partial dependency of any column on primary key. This is second normal form. Now we will move to third normal form. The third normal form compulsory says that it has to satisfy first normal form and then second normal form. Then third normal form applies that every non-prime attribute of the table must be depend on primary key. Consider one example. Student ID, student name, date of birth, street, city, state and then PIN. These are the attribute in this student table we have. In this table, which is the primary key? Student ID is the primary key. But on this primary key, this student by the name, their date of birth, street, city, state and then PIN. But here in this PIN is depend on state, city as well as street, is it no? It means that here student ID is one PIN and here PIN of the state, that is depend on another one. That's why what we have to do is we have to separate that. First student ID is the primary key here. On this table, name, date of birth, PIN I will write. But here it's a foreign key for another table and here it is the primary key. The primary key is here PIN. Depending upon the PIN, street, city and then state will get. Andre, ಒಂದೇ table ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು primary key ಇರಬಾರದು. So one foreign key ಇರಬಾರದು. We have to remove that. Foreign key is nothing but that key is a primary key in another table. That is nothing but foreign key here. You have to remove the foreign key. And here third normalization applies that every non-prime attribute of the table must be depend on primary key. Compulsory ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದು ಟೇಬಲ್ ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದು ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕೀ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿರಬೇಕು. ಇಫ್ ಯು ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಐಡಿ ಇದೆ, ಆ ಐಡಿ ಇಂಥ ನೇಮು ಡೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಬರ್ತ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಆದರೆ ಪಿನ್ ಇದೇ ಇಂಥ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಐಡಿ ಕಂಪಲ್ಸರಿ ಇಂಥ ಪಿನ್ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. On the same street, on the same city, on the same street, it is not possible. That's why I am to divide that table into another two tables. Here, in this case, student ID is the primary key, whereas here, PIN is the primary key. Whereas in this, it is a foreign key in the first table. Foreign key means here it's a primary key of another table. This is third normal form. Then the next one, before writing fourth normal form, one more form is there, that is Boys Code Normal Form, BCNF. BCNF is the higher version of third normal form. And in third normal form, table which does not have multiple overlapping candidate key is said to be in BCNF. Here there should be not have multiple overlapping agiro hagilla. Then with that, BCNF is based on the concept of determinants. These are the major concept on this normalization. Whereas on this class, you have studied regarding what do you mean by normalization? Then which are the types of normalization, like first normal form, second normal form, third normal form. Then codes rule. Majorly you have studied code rules on this class. What do you mean by codes rule? These are the rules we have to follow while creating any table. Then totally 12 rules are there. All the rules one by one it will says. And then normalization is nothing but dividing the large table into small unit to avoid the repetition. Then when they come on types, first normal form, in this multiple values in the cell that we have to remove. Whereas in second normal form, first it has to satisfy first normal form. Then here we have to divide that is second normal form. Third normal form, you have to remove the foreign key. Repetitions here we can be avoided. That is, this table is once again divided into another two tables. Whereas here student ID is the primary key. Whereas in this, PIN is the ID key. These are the major concepts you have studied on this class. Next class, study regarding the different types of architecture, how exactly it will work. Especially the remaining concept of the same chapter you will study in the next class. Thank you for all of you.